On today's Fellowship of the Rink, we start with Joe Smith breaking down Olympic hockey, women's hockey, Minnesota Wild getting into, of course, Jesper Wallstedt on the rise. Kiril Kaprizov, are we going to see what we saw at the beginning of the season anytime soon? And what's going on with Marco Rossi's injury? Then we kick it over to an awesome interview with Brianna Decker, decorated in every sense of the word, recent Hall of Fame inductee, now coach of the Minnesota Frost, just on the eve of the PWHL season. Then we bring you some Gopher hockey talk as recorded on this week's installment of Judd's Buds with none other than Spoked Z. This is all brought to you by our incredible local partners in Waggle. Make sure you are checking out all of their offerings for the next several weeks, actually running through December 2nd. They are 30% off site-wide. It's insane. I believe the 20th, so Thursday, they will be dropping unique landing pages as well for all of their different partners. They somehow talked me into doing some modeling. You can all go there and laugh at me, but make sure you stick around for the deals. Go to getyourwagon.com in the meantime. And again, make sure you're taking advantage of that 30% off. Enjoy the show.
Welcome back for another installment of Fellowship of the Rink. I'm isha.jahromi alongside your athletic beat writer for the Minnesota Wild and Minnesota Gophers and just NHL stories at large. The man, the myth, the legend, Joe Smith. How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Good. I mean, vibes are good coming off this weekend within just the Wild market and just some good hockey all around. And Joe, less than 80 days until the Olympics. So I'm all smiles now that more and more like news is coming out surrounding the Olympics. Now, some of it a little concerning where the NHL wants to go test their ice and the IOC kind of being like, oh, no, we got this. So, but hey, it wouldn't be a Winter Olympics with the IOC, IHF, and NHL somewhat butting heads. But I'm just excited that this whole winter season of hockey is right ahead of us, starting with the World Juniors.
World Juniors, Olympics. Like, I'm really excited about the Olympics, even though, like, I'm not going. Like, it's just incredible to see the talent that they have to decide between, right, on Canada and U.S. especially. And then, the Finns and Swedes are going to be really tough. And I know it's controversial to say, but just from a purely sports standpoint, I would love to see a Russian team, playing just because of how good that hockey would be. And I understand the reasoning behind it and support it and all that stuff. I just, the team would be pretty stacked, I think.
Yeah, they would have. I always say like U.S. probably has the best goalies in the tournament right now. If Russia was in there, they have 4 superstars deep to choose from, right? Whereas like the States have really good goalies as well, and they're going to be deep. Then you have Canada, who has Logan Thompson, Jordan Binnington. But you're right. No, Russia would be truly like the best on best is back. And shoot, even, Belarus is not allowed to compete either due to everything going on there. I mean, Belarus would push, Swiss and some of those other like just qualifying teams. I mean, Russia would have taken France's spot because France won that spot when it was decided that Russia wasn't going to come back again this year. But yeah, Belarus would have caused some, ruffles as well, as they always have a pretty good hockey program.
A question I have for you is, like, having watched him play now in person, Matthew Schaefer, like, do you put him in the mix for Team Canada, watching him play?
I mean, taking away Hockey Canada's historic, I don't even want to call it highbrowness because it's more just like old schoolness. Like, no, probably not, because it's like, okay, but like McDavid hasn't even competed in this yet, so we're given that crop of superstars who are already almost penciled in, who haven't had the opportunity to play for Canada yet, probably. As far as just like playing himself into the role, like, he has depth. From a United States comparison, I'm sure there's some guys who are kind of playing themselves into like, okay, maybe I'm going to get the call just to even go to camp now, for example. I mean, but I would say based on his season, I mean, Celebrity, man, like,
he's played himself on there, I think.
Right?
So,
like, that's another one where it's like, I think that he's 100% played himself on that team. But are there just enough spots? And is Canada going to go full skill, or are they going to bring Tom Wilson, right?
Yeah. I mean, there's multiple ways you can do it. And just because they won the Four Nations, albeit in a really close one, doesn't mean they'll win the Olympic gold. But they definitely have all the pieces, aside from, I guess you mentioned the goaltending, which Bennington played terrific in the Four Nations. So if they get that Bennington out, the guy who steals Ovi's puck, you're in pretty good shape. But I'm fascinated to see like some of the U.S. calls that Bill Guerin will have to make going forward, because it's just there are some guys that are playing themselves, like Tage Thompson should be on there. I think you have other guys that probably won't make it. Like I don't think Lane Hudson's going to make it quite yet. Logan Cooley and Clayton Keller, like they in the conversation, right? So be interesting to see how that plays out. But when all that takes is one injury too, and all of a sudden a guy gets a chance. So
yeah, no, for sure. So it's just super exciting. I know I just love the Winter Olympics a little bit more than the summer personally. It's probably because I'm from Canada, but I feel like a lot of North Americans, I don't know. I feel like it's because we're used to the cold. We grew up around winter sports a lot more than some of the Europeans. So I feel like it's just, it hits different, and it just hits different. And I was lucky enough to have it in my backyard in 2010, and that just kind of really solidified my love for the Winter Olympics, even outside of hockey. And I've watched the hockey without the NHL players. I mean, we got to see Kiril Kaprizov rip it up under the Olympic athletes of Russia at one point. And we saw some fun storylines with like Germany going far when there weren't NHL players, and all that stuff's fun. But at the end of the day, like, we want to see Crosby in there one more time. We want to see the Kachuk brothers in there for the Olympics on the U.S. side. And we want to see some of these Europeans who've been dominating for the last decade now on the biggest stage. And we're going to be talking about a little bit of women's hockey later in the show as well. We have a great guest later in the show as well. Hall of Famer in the worlds of women's hockey and USA hockey, and the women's teams right now too, with the boom of the PWHL. I feel like there's a lot more interest in the women's international hockey now too, that their professional league is like, there's not a lot of questions of how long is it going to last now. It's like, okay, this is a real thing. And there's a lot of women who are developing at a younger age and at a faster rate than they did under the last leagues and, just international hockey between Canada and the States particularly.
Yeah, we saw that the rivalry series recently. I know Russo was out there for Buffalo and Cleveland. I think they have another one in Edmonton in December, but U.S. team came to play, right? Taylor Heisey and Abby Murphy, and there are some like Heisey was cut from the 22 team, so like there's a lot of motivation there for her to come back here, and you saw that the first couple of years with the Frost. But talk about difficult decisions on each end. There's a few that are probably pretty much guaranteed slam dunk ones, but the growth of the game, and obviously seeing more teams involved in the PWHL with Seattle, Vancouver, and then I think Detroit's pushing for a team, other teams in the Midwest. So it's more about the growth of the sport versus worrying about the logistics and will they be able to be sustainable for time. Yeah,
and I mean, it just seems, and we talked about this in the Decker interview, but it just seems like this era is here to stay. It doesn't feel like it's on wobbly legs. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, once you have more role models, I think too, it's going to help fuel the game as well. You have all these young female hockey players now in Minnesota going to Frost games, right? Like they see that's possible, like even when Heisey's coming up.
For any hockey fan, even just regardless of gender too, like I can't go to Wild games all the time. I can't go to high level games all the time, but there are high level like tournament games, international games and stuff like that all the time. But like I can afford to take a few friends and go to a Frost game, and it's such good hockey.
It is. And it's like not as physical as men's game, but shows a lot of the skill there. You've seen a lot of the skating and kind of the hockey sense and all that stuff. So
they get a little chippy too, because they're allowed to throw the body a little bit more than they were allowed in international hockey, which is where we primarily international and college hockey, which is primarily where we watch the women play. before this era. And in some of the past leagues, like they were so not okay with even throwing a little bit of checks where you can hit a little bit in this league and it just adds so much to the product.
It certainly does. Isha, what do you think about the Wild right now?
Zamboni's on 7th Restaurant and Bar at 174 West 7th Street, right across the street from Grand Casino Arena. We're going to keep calling it the X. More than just your go-to spot before, during, and after all your favorite downtown events, Zamboni's on 7th is now your spot for late-night downtown eats. On game days, event days, and plain old regular days, Tuesday through Saturday. Zamboni's on 7th is now serving their delicious tavern-style pizza, as well as fried specialties late into the night. Check out their menu online at zambonison7th.com or stop by for a few beers, cocktails, or sodas and dig in. Zamboni's on 7th. Before, during, and after. Way after.
No, great. I was going to have a fancier segue and be like, speaking of a better product, but you know what? To the point, Joe, right to the point. The vibes have been flipped. I think a lot of people are a little bit more hopeful, and I think a lot of people are like, okay, this is the team that I expected at the beginning of the season based off that first win. And furthermore, Wallstedt's an NHL goalie.
Yeah, I think that's one of the more, I guess, pleasant surprises if you're into those kind of superlatives. But yeah, I think he had a really rough year last year, and there were people that were questioning, like, hey, is this guy a goalie of the future, or like, is he going to flame out? And it's unfair, I think, to put that much doubt after he's like, I had one shitty season. He's like, I played in my age group my whole life, and I had one shitty season, and doesn't make me a bad goalie. And I think he took that as motivation. He went in the summer. He had tremendous training, worked on himself off the ice too, and nutrition, and like you could tell him in great shape. And just the mindset for him, like in practice, he's on it every drill, every shot, and that's a big difference from his habits from before, and it translates into the game. And so now he's on a hot streak, a couple shutouts in a row, and feeling good. And I know the word goalie controversy was thrown out in our mailbag at the Athletic. And Hines is like, bring it on any day of the week, because it means they're pushing each other. I'm sure you'd rather have a number one who's playing great, but you see the last two starts for Gustafsson. I think 2 goals allowed in each of the last two, including an overtime victory against Vegas. So, I think those two guys have the relationship to where a little competition is not going to hurt them.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think there's going to be animosity. There's not going to be like that edge there. I think Gus is genuinely happy for Wallstedt, and Wallstedt, he's happy for Gus when he got the contract. He's like, that's great. He deserved it. He earned it. But it won't change the way I approach things and want to play. And I think Wallstedt is playing well enough to earn more starts. He's already going to get 25 or 30 to start the year just because of the way the schedules,
this
so it's not like
this isn't a league where goalies play 60 to 70 games anymore. Like, what is it? Yeah. Talbot was probably one of the last to play 70 games. Luongo played, but even when Luongo was playing all those games, like Corey Schneider was like the 1B. Like, we called him backup, but he was the 1B. We all knew he was going to be the next if Luongo left. And Corey Schneider's and Luongo's relationship was awesome, even though the media in Vancouver tried to poison them. Yeah. I know the age gap was a little bit bigger between the two, but Pecorine and Saros, like what? Because I keep forgetting that Gustin is so young, right? Like he's mid-20s, not 30s, right? So I know Rene was a little bit older and maybe was a little bit more of that mentor, whereas like Wallstedt and maybe Gustin are a little bit more like friends versus mentor, not. But still, Gustin's been in the league longer. There's going to be a little bit of that like showing of the ropes and this is how I do things. The fact that their relationship is good, and I think that the fact that they're like kind of closer in age, but one's been in the league a little bit longer, is a really cool dynamic. And we've seen it work before. I mean, I just gave those two examples. Like, clearly Rene was number one. Clearly Luongo was number one. But Saros was just as valued, just as loved, and had just as much expectation to win games as the backup or 1B. So I, like you said, like Hines said, great problem to have, quote unquote, for those listening.
And I covered the Bishop and Vasilevsky, right?
Yes.
Those years too. Like, and that was a little different because you knew, like even Bishop knew, like, hey, best offseason to take this job. It's mine for now. But he still led them to the conference final cup final. So
he arguably kept it 2 years longer than fans probably expected, and that's just because he's damn good.
Yeah, absolutely. And this one isn't like a traditional, like, Gustafsson got a long-term deal, so not like this is a 1-year bridge to Wallstedt, but they can both play in a really good tandem, and they can, and injuries happen, of course. So it's good to have that. Good to have that guy. And overall, like I think what we saw in the first month of the season, which obviously was pretty brutal for the Wild, and the vibes were pretty low, and like as much as there was a lot of panic on the outside, there wasn't as much on the inside. I think Gustafsson put it best. You have to fake it to make it. You have to fake the confidence on the outside, knowing inside there's still some stress. But the big differences you saw have been goaltending, number one, defending in front of them, number two, back to their identity of playing that difficult to play against game, the forechecking, not giving up the rushes, not being so loose, and those two
no one's
translated
scoring
together.
on them 5-on-5. No one's scoring on them 5-on-5 now. I think was it like three or four games?
Yeah, so 5-on-5 they've been locking it down, and they're the special teams, aside from a recent overnight stretch with the power play has been up the top of the league, and penalty kill last stretch of 13 in a row before they get up to 1-2. Like, so they've been making some clutch kills in certain moments in games that are close. So the scoring is still there's more there, I think, or they hope there's more there, because eventually you're going to get into situations where your goalie can't be on his head every game. So I guess for the Wild to be there here now, back in a kind of a playoff spot type range, is really encouraging, considering where it was at the end of October, where there were people asking, is Hines in the hot seat? What are they going to do? Do they need to shake it up? And those were all fair questions based upon where they were, and if they would have gone on the opposite streak and lost 4 of the next 6, all of a sudden we're talking about a different conversation here. But now they won 6 out of the last 8, taking advantage of a little bit of a different schedule. And so I think that has put them in a good range, and they're getting healthy, right? Zuccarello's back, which I think put people down, shifted different parts of the lineup back to a more the regular spot. Hinostroza has been really good. Urov has been, I think, really promising with that line with Foligno, and Trenyan is really kind of finding an identity there. So that's been encouraging from the young kids' perspective. So all this to be said, the one guy hasn't really popped off yet is Kaprizov. And he has the points, he has the goals, and the numbers look good, but he hadn't really had his moment yet until, I guess, the overtime victory against Vegas, the one-timer, and his franchise record 11th overtime winning goal. So if he gets on a similar stretch where he was beginning of last season, where he was MVP talk, then all of a sudden that elevates them even more. Yeah. But at least they're in that position right now where they feel like they're not constantly digging themselves out of a hole and can get themselves. They're not 500 yet because it's overtime losses, right?
Oh yeah,
7-4. So it's like they're 9-11, I guess, if you consider that, no loser point. But they're more than treading water, and they're playing a style with which that they're accustomed to playing and that they can play. So they're not winning out of on these track meet kind of games or crazy games. They're winning because they're playing the way that they're supposed to play more consistently.
Yeah, and it just seemed like in the beginning of the season, like the goaltending was there to a certain degree, right? There's obviously some hiccups, but like there's going to be when the defense wasn't playing well. There was some injuries. The special teams weren't clicking. So it was like, I mean, we said this, it was a perfect storm after that first game where like nothing other than the goaltending was really clicking. Well, now that the defense is kind of back, now that there's some scoring, now that they're defending well 5-on-5, now that their special teams are better, we see it's night and day. Whereas like, okay, little things can be off that you can still win the game with your other tools and other areas being so dominant. Whereas at the beginning of the season, it was like we were just relying on the guy between the pipes to help us, and he's not gonna be able to do that every single night. So it is encouraging to see that, like, no hockey team is perfect in an NHL season. The NHL season is the most grueling season in sports, but it's good to see that like more boxes are checked right now than not. Other than, I guess, the injury bug continue to hit, but again, that's not unique to the Wild. That's every team is going to face some of this stuff. Marco Rossi, what are you hearing about him and how the severity of his injury?
Well, right now it's week to week. Initially, it was a couple of weeks, but he's been playing with this injury since the Flyers game when he blocked that
Damn.
shot off his foot/ankle area. So I think he tried to gut it out. I mean, he was a guy who didn't miss a game for the first 2+ seasons in the NHL.
What a warrior.
It's pretty impressive for his size and where he goes. He goes to those dirty areas, and a lot of his goals are from the front of the net and the crease. So,
Joe, you think he's a Billy Guerin guy playing through injury. That's all I'm going to say.
Tough kid. He's a really, really tough kid. So for him to be out, really kind of shows how much it's bothering him. And so that, obviously brings, Hartman gets elevated to the top line. You see Jahromi at times got that little elevation, but I think it fits them better now to have him with Foligno and Trenyan. So you see other guys to kind of step in, and I think Ben Jones got a chance in the lineup the other night. So, and they'll get Nico Sturm back, I think, in the next few weeks here. I think December 1st was a target date. So after this next road trip, I believe. So all of a sudden you'll have more difficult decisions. Because Tarasenko has been out recently too. So, but Jahromi has definitely played after that 3-game stretch of being scratched. You're seeing him more playing to the way he's capable of playing, not a flashy or not pop off the screen, but just really reliable. And guys mentioned how they know where he's going to be as a winger. You know where he'll be, you know how to support, and that really plays a difference when you're in that kind of a line that's more on the forecheck and that kind of stuff. So, so the young kids, I mean, even David Hunt is a really great story right now too.
Oh yeah,
wow. A guy who's really stabilized things on the third pair and can play the right side, can play the left side, of course, but gives a chance for them to sit Juracek a little bit, and maybe Juracek could go back to Iowa when Bogosian's back, just because
he just doesn't seem ready yet for the NHL. Whereas Hunt is helping this team win games, whereas Juracek doesn't look bad throughout all the games. Don't get me wrong. There's just more. He has a higher ceiling, lower floor. So there's more to tweak for him to be as good as we think he can be. Whereas Hunt, it's like his ceiling may be lower, but I feel like the floor is a lot higher, and he's already kind of an NHL player. Not even kind of. He is an NHL player. He is absolutely an NHL player. Yeah.
And nothing wrong with being a second or third pair defenseman who plays penalty kill. Like, guys can carve long careers, like the John Merrills of the world. These guys play that long doing it. So he's just a steady Eddie kind of player. Doesn't make a lot of mistakes. He will make some, but he's just kind of very calming, good puck mover, can be physical. And I think Juracek has more tools, or like the size and offensive ability.
Skill,
but there's just always one play or one mistake in a game that's costly, right? And he's could have a great game, right? And you're like, oh, this guy's playing well, and then all of a sudden there's one, and then it's just it really makes it more difficult for coaches to trust that. So I don't think anybody's given up on him yet, but I just think that overall he could use more seasoning, more regular playing time. And
defensemen take longer. Not all of them, but compared to forwards, I feel like defensemen take longer, especially the high-skilled offensive ones. Unless you're Erik Karlsson or Letang, which if Juracek becomes either of those two, sweet. But like, let's be honest, probably a notch below those. But other than the bona fide superstars, it takes a little while. It's a different game, and he's physically, not. He doesn't look like Zeev Buium, right? So like, there's also like, okay, how does a guy with this physical frame who's been able to do it at the lower level and with guys, teenagers, for example, how can he apply that to the men's game now at the highest level, right? So there's so many different variables, and that's why I think the Wild haven't given up. That's why I think there still is value, that they're like, no, we want to see if we can get everything we can out of this guy. And look at that. We got one of the main pieces in the trade for him back in Hunt, who's can stay in that role until Juracek is ready to come back up, or we go with Hunt and realistically wash our hands of that, knowing that we ended up winning at the end of the day anyways.
Well, it's like making a big trade, and then all of a sudden the guy gets dropped on waivers, and you get picked up in the fantasy football, right? You lose the guy and then get him back on waivers, so you feel like you get the guy. The Wild have actually been pretty successful with their waiver pickups on the back end. I mean,
Chisholm, for example, was a great pickup just a couple of years ago, and obviously not with the team anymore, but like he was pillar's probably too grand of a word, but like he was a staple on that defense.
Yeah, I mean, and then you have Hinestroza offensively, picking him up. So yeah, I think overall they find ways to get those guys, and if you can find a guy for the right role, doesn't have to be a big time role. Just have a guy that can fill in, and that's great. So
yeah, maybe they'll get Murat back someday. It won't be through waivers the way he's playing, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, I don't think he's a top line player the rest of his career, but it's a great moment for him right now.
Oh, I was just, as a hockey fan, wild outside of it, I was just such a fan of the way he played in Russia, and I really saw those things in the NHL. I was just like, he's young, first year, the scoring's not going to be there when he's in this role, and Boston kind of gave him a little bit more rope, and it's like, oh yeah, this is the player that I figured would be in the NHL. So I'm from Vancouver, can't stand the Bruins, but I will always root for Murat and his success.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Anything else women's hockey you want to get into before we go over to our guest? I know we kind of touched on it in the beginning of the show, but like frost season right around the corner. We're gonna have a lot of frost coverage here as the season begins with a few guests in the next couple weeks. But some thoughts on the beginning of the season. Potential three-peat in the air. It's a small league, so it can happen. But there's 2 additional teams coming in this year, which should make for, especially out west, it's going to make for definitely some changes in the league. But just how excited are you for an expansive version of the PWHL this year?
I mean, pretty cool to have different markets involved too. You know how good hockey is in those different areas, you especially. But I think, the Frost are interesting because, the expansion rules really hit a lot of teams, including the Frost, with how you can really protect a certain amount of players. And they've had some turnover since their first championship. So, I think they have the capability. They have the goaltending. They have the star power up front with the group to win it again. It's just a matter of, it's kind of crazy that no one else has felt the feeling of winning the Walter Cup.
Yeah.
They've won it the first 2 years, so no one else in the league.
And they say this isn't the state of hockey.
Yeah.
We got 2 Walter Cups, maybe.
It'll be fun to see how they mesh and gel this year. You've seen them practice all the time at Tree after the Wild do. So obviously the fans should be pretty back in the stands at Grand Casino Arena. I think they start on the 21st, which is Friday, I believe, their first game. So we'll have some guests on the show coming up, and have a Taylor Heisey story coming out, I believe, early next week. So we'll have some coverage that way.
Do you think there's are you eyeing a particular player who you think's gonna have like a breakout year? For me, it's like, and I think she's been tremendous with the team thus far, but I think Grace Zimwickle this year is going to pop a little bit more on the stat sheet. And I think that there's a possibility for her to get more minutes, play more on the top lines, but she's like one of the best skaters I've seen on that team. And I know she's had some, international play with Team USA as well in her career, and she's always stood out. Speed and just like the way she carves, just her skating is beautiful. And it seemed like last year offensively, just that offensive prowess and her being used in more just like systematic plays and stuff like that. It seemed like she was being used a little bit more in that role. And I just feel like this year's the year where like, we could maybe even see like 10 goals. So I'm hoping, and I think that she's gonna have a breakout year offensively, but like she's been such a good pillar for this team already, but she's still super young. So I'm, with 2 years experience as pro and all the international experience and stuff she's had before, I think this is going to be a breakout year for Grace on the stat sheet.
She could be a 2-time Olympian too. She was there in 22, and she could be there again. So
yeah, what an exciting season for just all these hockey players, even like the junior players too. Like, wow, it's so cool. I just feel like when the World Juniors is in North America, it hits different. Like it just hits different. And I'm sure for the Europeans say the same thing. They probably say, when it's in Finland or Czech or whatever, that's it for us. But like, yeah, and especially like in a hockey mad city like Minnesota, right? Like it's cool when it goes to like Halifax and friggin' somewhere in Ontario or Quebec and whatnot. It's cool when it goes to the small cities in Canada because they light up. But like, I don't know, man. When it came to like Vancouver and Victoria, when it comes to like Minnesota, it's just like these markets are so hockey crazy, not just Wild and Canucks crazy. and I say that in the most endearing way, that it's unfortunate, honestly, Joe, that it's not being marketed at all. Like, I'm seeing more billboards on random get 2 lanes, buy one, get one free in the local curling rink that I am get your World Junior tickets. So
yeah.
Do you know, like, what are your thoughts quick on that before we turn the page here? Like, why isn't it being marketed enough here locally when it's just around the corner?
Yeah, you'd think so. And maybe, I don't know if it's really necessarily our responsibility, but like, I think people can pitch stories to us and we can write stories on World Junior, on players and stuff like that. So I'm not sure. Like, I know tickets are pretty high, expensive wise. And so they might turn people away, but I think there should be a lot of exciting hockey, even though a lot of the guys from the US team kind of graduated, quote unquote, but they could do probably a better job of marketing it just overall as an organization, because even just Team USA.
Exactly. Well, my biggest thing too is, like, yes, the tickets are going to be expensive for USA, Canada. Like, they are, even if you're in some tiny town, even if you're in Regina, okay, like, you're paying an arm and a leg for those tickets. But what in my opinion, they should be marketing, and Victoria, when it was in Victoria, did this really well, because they didn't have Vancouver. They didn't have Team Canada. They had the second bracket, Group B. So they had Team USA, but they had like Switzerland and Kazakhstan, but they marketed those games as, hey, you can get in the door for $40 to have the experience, and maybe win tickets to a United States game there during one of the things or whatever. But they marketed, hey, get in the door for the experience and these other games cheap, and you'll want to come back for the big games. And it worked. I went to see Kazakhstan play Swiss. I saw a lot of the lower ranked but still good hockey games. And I think, and again, I have no idea if they're going to do this here in Minnesota, but in Victoria, what they did was they would sell tickets like 30% off after the first period if they wanted to fill seats for like the Kazakh games and stuff like that. So as a college kid, I would just I'd wait at the bar until the second period and then go there for like $35, get in to go see just the experience of the World Junior. So I'm kind of surprised they're not even just going that route, locally, to try to just get some interest there, or even just Team USA.
Yeah, get the Gophers crowd, get the colleges in there involved, college kids. Most of them who are staying here, not going home for Christmas kind of thing. A lot of them are local anyway, so should do that. But
well, I hope the listeners like hear my passion and excitement for it and know that like the experience and just the vibe of it, it's like, it reminds me of like high school hockey tournament. It reminds me of the NCAA tournament, but there's just that extra bit of like pride and passion, because it's like, it's for our country, it's for the crest, right? So if you guys can go there, if you have the opportunity, if you have the funds, even if it's for like not the Canada or US games, it's worth every penny. It's worth every penny. And just meeting some of the traveling fans too from Europe and around the world is just a really cool experience.
Well, with that, Isha, let's give it to our guest, Brianna Decker, newly inducted Hockey Hall of Famer. Pretty crazy. And she joined as her first year on the Minnesota Frost coaching staff. I know a lot of players have been excited to work with her as one of the idols that they looked up to and stuff. So let's get Brianna on here. And thanks so much for joining us, guys.
Sundays are fun days at Zamboni's on 7th Restaurant and Bar. They love hockey. They love St. Paul. And they love bingo. Their charitable gambling sponsors are St. Paul Capitals Youth Hockey. And they've partnered with them for Sunday bingo with great cash prizes, including a $1,000 coverall game. Take advantage of free street parking on Sundays and stop in for great food and drink, cash prizes, and of course, THC raffles during Zamboni's on 7th, Wake and Bake, and Smash Mouth Pizza Brunch Bingo Sundays. Come get it.
Joining the show today is one of us by way of Team USA. She's an Olympic gold medalist, a member of the U.S. Hockey Hall of Fame, and soon to be inducted Hockey Hall of Famer. Gopher fans remember her as a national champion with rival Wisconsin, but now she's an assistant coach for the two-time defending champion Minnesota Frost. Welcome to the show, Brianna Decker. How's it going?
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. I don't know if you saw the name of the podcast as Fellowship of the Rink is a stick tap to our love and passion for Lord of the Rings series. I wasn't sure if you're the Lord of the Rings fan at all, if you've seen any of the movies or read the books, or if you don't, do you have like a nerd itch do you scratch sometimes, like a collectible thing or book series you like, or movies, or anything that's kind of off the wall that you're like, this is my thing?
I am not a Lord of the Rings fan, unfortunately, but obviously people love that stuff. I think, honestly, with a little bit more off time in the off season, I have gotten into some reading, but more into thriller, suspense type books. Same with like movie series. I love that stuff. Anything that keeps me on my toes. I enjoy, keeps me hooked, and I binge those things, which isn't very good.
Well, it can help release, it could be for relaxation, or like,
Yeah.
I'm sure when you're playing time on the road, or like, time away, you guys have to kill time sometime, right? Or be able to kind of get it can't all be just hockey all the time.
Exactly.
Tell us about the call, which everyone who's Hall of Famer knows about what the call means, I guess. But like, I understand you were doing some yard work during that time, or like if you had a video camera of you getting the call, what would that look like?
Yeah, when I got the call, I ignored it. I kind of was just like, at that time I was still working at Shattuck, and so I was like, oh, it might just be a recruit calling in or a kid that we're interested in. So I'm like, I'll call him later. The call came through again. I'm like, Toronto, like that's so interesting. So I answered, obviously shut the mower down, and I was like, hello, and then it was Lanny McDonald's and Ron Francis on the other line, and they're like, hey, we just want to let you know that like you are going to be inducted to the Hockey Hall of Fame this year. And I'm like, what? So I like stepped off the mower. I just went on my front stoop of my house, and I was in shock. It's like as an athlete, as a hockey player, when you're younger, you don't ever dream of being inducted in the Hockey Hall of Fame. Like, I grew up in small town Wisconsin, so I was like, I just want to play for the Badgers. That was like my goal when I was younger. And obviously you want to play for the U.S. team at some point, but when I was really young, I was just looking up to those Badger women that were about an hour away. So to get that call from them and hear that news, it was super emotional for me, and I was more in shock than anything.
Who were your hockey heroes, I guess? Who were the ones that kind of paved the way for you? You mentioned obviously that went to Wisconsin, but maybe other Olympians that you followed too.
Yeah, so like a couple of the women Olympians that I obviously looked up to was Cami Granato, and then Angela Ruggiero too, and then I followed a lot of the NHL guys, and Jaromir Jagr was like my guy growing up. Like, I loved him, and so I kind of became a Pittsburgh fan. And a plus side being from Wisconsin is there is no NHL team, so I never felt like I needed to be a huge fan of the home state team. And so it was nice to be able to just follow the Penguins, and that was kind of, those are like my immediate role models. And then Sis Paulson, who actually works for the Frost too, she's the equipment manager for the Frost now. She was the captain of the Wisconsin Badgers when I was growing up, and so I wanted to be like her as well.
Yeah, and obviously you have the guy who's still playing in Jagr. Like, he'll be playing, probably his Hall of Fame induction will be when he's like 90 years old or something like that. Like,
I know.
He won't get the call forever, it seems like.
Do you see him like warming up, just running with a bunch of weights and like team members behind him on ropes still, like to get he goes to the rink 2-3 hours still ahead of time. He said not to do like paperwork and payroll stuff, which he helps with the team that he owns now, but to like straight up still like warm up with like the teammates.
Yeah. It's insane.
You mentioned small town in Dousman, as it is, or how do you pronounce it?
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Like, tell me a little more about it. Like, what is like the whole like frog jumping contest at the state fair? Like, it's got to be some sort of story behind that.
You definitely did your research. Good job there. Yeah, we have Dousman Derby Days, which is a little town fair in the summer, and you go and find your own. We're like the home of the bullfrogs, and so like there's a lot of creeks and ponds around by us or lakes, and you'll find some bullfrogs or frogs there, and so you go and find yours, and if you don't have one, they supply you one, and so you got to give it 3. Yeah, it gets 3 hops, and they measure the distance. I mean, it's as small town as you can get.
I was like, that's like the in like the most endearing way. That is the most Wisconsin thing I've ever heard.
I know. So yeah, we have that, but I mean, it's a town of like 1,500 people, and obviously I went to a bigger middle school, which was like a bunch of elementary schools combined. But I think it's humbling to go back there. I think just recognizing the people that are still living there and still around. Like, I'll still go and visit my softball coach when I'm in town, and who I grew up playing for. And so it's kind of, like I said, it's humbling, and I love going back there every once in a while.
What was your best finish in the frog jumping thing? Did you have what was your best overall? I don't know how many times you participated in this.
And I never won, right? But like I mean, it was fun. I think it's just like there was a bunch of carnival rides and stuff like there too. So it was just fun to go with my brothers and my parents.
And I think you wrote something at one point, but you said you considered the Gophers for about half a minute, and I was wondering. That half a minute, what was it like? And like, was it any close to like Wisconsin, obviously, and the Gophers are like arch enemies, right? But like, did you have any exposure to watching Minnesota games, or like, was there ever consideration of like play for the Gophers?
Yeah, I think because I went to Shattuck and played at Shattuck for 4 years, I would go up to the Gopher games like when I could. Like it was obviously like games I wanted to attend and watch, those women that I wanted to be. And so obviously a series that I would try not to miss would be when the Badgers were in town. And so the fun story I have, which, thankfully the Minnesota Gopher staff has turned over for the most part, but Frost is still there. And I think he was still around. He was still around when I was getting recruited, but he, so they would, have us recruits come up and watch these games. Well, I would show up to the Badger Gopher games and I would be wearing like a Gopher sweatshirt because they invited us to the games as recruits. And then I would put like my Wisconsin t-shirt underneath. So I was like, I knew where my heart stood, but I did consider the Gophers. I guess I'd go on a bunch of those games. I obviously looked there and they were one of the top programs in the nation at the time and still are. So of course I considered them a little bit.
Were your parents into hockey at all? Like, what are your parents like? What kind of jobs did they have? And
I grew up with really blue collar family. My parents never played, so they played when they were in high school. They played the typical softball, baseball, some basketball, but I got into it because my 2 older brothers played, and then myself and my younger brother kind of followed suit. So like my parents, like I said, there's blue collar workers, and my dad worked for Quad Graphics for a really long time. And so I think like the qualities that I took from my parents is just like the work ethic and how hard they worked for everything and worked for us kids.
So you probably had just like one small pond in town, I guess, right? Or one rink, or was it where you had to travel a lot to get somewhere to play.
Yeah, right? I was at least traveling 20-25 minutes to the nearest rink, and the other home rink that our like Waukesha County youth hockey played out of was about 35 minutes away. So, that's why I'm like commuting up to the Trio rink every day. Not a big deal for me.
Talking about the the frog jump, I just realized I shouldn't even talk because I'm from small town in Western Canada, and we had a zucchini race at the end of every summer, so I shouldn't be talking. But speaking of Western Canada, how did you enjoy playing your one season in Calgary in the CWHL? Like the city, the fans, the mountains. Just tell us a little bit about that experience. Obviously, you won the league and absolutely dominated that year over point per game. But yeah, what was the experience like up in Calgary?
Yeah, that was honestly one of my favorite pro seasons. Obviously I played in Boston quite a bit too, but I loved Calgary. If I didn't have to move back, I wouldn't have. I absolutely loved that city, loved the fans. And I kind of was there a little bit through COVID too. And so I went and hiked a lot up in Canmore and up in Banff quite a bit. And so I absolutely loved it there and couldn't say enough great things about that city and what they had to bring to women's hockey, and obviously the girls hockey there too is growing so much more. So it was a fun place to play.
Was that random team in China still part of the league when you were there? And what the hell was that like traveling? Did you go there and play them 8 times and then come back and then they did the same thing? Like, how was the scheduling like?
This interview is brought to you by our friends at Waggle. Waggle is a golf term, so their origin is obvious. But like you and I, their roots extend well beyond the tee box. Waggle is rooted in early mornings on the water and late nights around the campfire, in lacing up the skates, and in casting a line. These hobbies and passions are what inspire their team daily to create apparel that makes you say, wow, this was made for me. Because, really, it was. Waggle's biggest sale of the year is live right now. Hats, polos, pants, shorts, jackets, flannels, socks, everything is 30% off. We pulled together a list of our all-time favorite products, so make sure you shop the link in the description.
They were like over in North America longer than
That's what I figured.
they
Yeah,
would be on like long road trips here, which I'm
half
sure,
a season road
Yeah,
trip. Like
yeah,
that's
I
crazy.
know. So we did go there. Yes, we did travel there for like a 3-game series, and we were over there for a few days, like 4 or 5 days. It was a quick like trip. But yeah, that was quite the experience. And it was actually super warm there. So it was like 60s, 70s, and it like, which was really nice. Cause I think if I remember right, we were there like, I think over like in February or January. So I was like, this is great. Like we needed a break from the winters here. So.
Speaking of playing internationally, obviously the Olympics is a goal for any hockey player, male, female. Like in 18, like how would you describe your favorite kind of moment or moments leading up to the medal winning experience there?
Yeah, I mean, the epic win for us in a shootout, like no one plans that. And, I think the big thing for us is that like us veteran players who were on the team in 2014 or some of the women were on the team in 2010 too. Like we knew how it felt to lose that gold medal game. And so we were really prepared for anything. And, I think I think the coolest moment, and I would say this whether she was a goaltender for the Frost or not, but like having Maddie Rooney back there and like she's such a young goaltender for that team. I think like, everyone talks about how experience is really important in those gold medal games or at the Olympics. And I definitely think that's a huge factor of, being successful at the Olympics is that experience. But like almost having someone so young who almost doesn't realize how big the moment is, I think helped Maddie Rooney in that moment. But it was, like you said, like every athlete who plays with dreams of playing in the Olympics, let alone a gold medal game, and to be able to come out on top in one of the Olympics that I played in, I was like super fortunate of that. And it was just so rewarding to have the women who like I said, who weren't successful at times earlier on in their careers at the Olympics. It was so fun to be able to win it for them.
Like that heck of a run for like the World Championships or everything else from like 2011 to like 19. Like who are some of your closest friends from those teams?
Yeah, definitely. I was best friends with Casey Bellamy and Megan Duggan, and we're still pretty close. And yeah, Casey Bellamy and I are best friends. We talk probably on a weekly basis, and she lives out in New Hampshire, and I'm in Minnesota. But and then obviously growing up with Amanda Kessel, like I played against her in youth hockey, so yeah, her and her brother are the ones that chose that Gopher route, even though they're from Madison. But yeah, Cass and I grew up playing youth hockey together, and so I was pretty close with her as well. And then going to Shattuck with the Lamoureux twins, those guys, you just know each other at a different level when you grow up with some of those players. And then to win it with those guys, it's unbelievable. Same with Alex Rigsby. She was one of the youth hockey players that I played with as well.
And you had a chance in other Olympics in 2022, and obviously with like the injury, did you think that would be the end for you, like playing wise, or like how did that kind of come about in terms of like obviously you wanted to finish it out and end it the right way, but like how did that kind of come for you, I guess, in that?
Yeah, I think that was like super tough. I went into that Olympics like it was going to be my last, just because, it's just I'm like, okay, like that's a great mindset to have anyways. You're going to give it your all, even though you would anyways. But when that happened, it kind of made me question, do I want to come back? And I trained to come back. I rehabbed to come back just in case I wanted to. And I think after some time off, I realized amount of stress that I was holding inside playing for the national team for as long as I had. And some of that stress kind of seemed to be like a weight lifted off. And I was like, maybe I need to take a little bit more time and see where to go. And then like when Shattuck called me to come back and coach, I kind of was like, you know what, like maybe I'll do that. And I just kind of found I found a joy for coaching. And I realized that it's fun to be able to connect with the players and help them get to places that I had been to.
And I'm sure you would have loved to have this league now, PWHL, like 6 years ago, right? Like, or like to see what do you think of what they've built there so far in a couple of years of what the league is like and the opportunities that kind of affords, women like yourself who were even at maybe 5 or 6 years ago, top of your game, would be able to be part of it,
Yeah, I think the biggest things when I was playing pro hockey was like, we need more visibility, we need more stability. And I think that is exactly what this league is doing better than the other leagues that we've been in. And so, the visibility has been great. I think, being able to have the fans that we have in certain cities and, then expanding already, I think those are just some things that we just didn't have the funds for and the ability to do. And so that's, I think the league's doing it right this year. And I think there's been enough, veteran player input to help with that. And then along with just, like I said, like the financial backing, that's been super helpful for the league as well.
You think it's like sustainable long term? Like, do you think with what the base has been built now? I know they're expanding to Vancouver and Seattle. Like, obviously growing. You don't want to grow too much too soon. But do you think what the base of what you guys have is sustainable?
Yeah, I mean I think that's what's been nice is like being back. As a coach now, I'm like, yeah, they have a lot more than what we had, and things just to seem all the ducks are in a row instead of kind of being spread out right now. And so I think it's going to be more sustainable. And like I said, the visibility of spreading it, expanding, to the West Coast, I think that stuff can only help.
What led you to come into the Frost? Like, obviously you have a pretty good gig in Shattuck, a place you know really well. Like, what led to that, and like what kind of excites you about this kind of role with this team?
Yeah, I think the opportunity arose. I think I enjoyed coaching Shattuck and the players, that age group. I really enjoyed it. I think some of those girls are just trying to go play D1 college hockey. So I really enjoyed that age group. But when this opportunity came up and I applied for the job and went for it. And I think just being able to play with the pro, being able to coach the pro players, they're professionals. And so I think they're just going to be able to understand my feedback, a little bit more quick and being able to convert it on the ice quick. But, I think the unique part and a lot of the questions that I've gotten so far have been like, hey, like you're coaching some of the players you played with. And obviously that's a unique situation, but at the same time, I respect them so much and they'll be professional about it. And I will too. So.
I know Taylor Heisey said she hated being in the circle against you. So I think that's something that's carried forward Like, what do you see in her overall? Like, I know she's very like kind of outspoken and wants to kind of help sell the league, as she was #1 pick, obviously in the draft. Like, what do you see in her talent wise? Can she be kind of one of the next faces, I guess, of the league or the sport in your mind?
Yeah, definitely. I think like you said, like she's definitely got the face and she definitely has that outspoken personality, which I think you need to help like push a league forward and push a team forward as well. I think her on ice ability, she's definitely got that. You look at her dynamic and how dynamic she is and her size, and she can shoot the puck. And again, it's just like that's a player you want, especially in this league with how physical it is. You want somebody who's going to be hard to push off the puck and good in the dot. And so, I'm glad that we have her.
Well, and she mentioned too, like the Olympics in 22, like she was in that tryout situation and she felt she didn't have a great workout week, right? And she's like, that sometimes happens, but you have to wait 4 years for it again. Like, how much do you think that kind of experience can motivate a player like that? Like, okay, I had this chance, on the cusp, but like I didn't show enough to get there.
Yeah, I think it's sometimes as tough as it is for a player to go through that when they're maybe on the younger side of the tryout. I think it only propelled her into the last 4 years, and now she's setting herself up for a good chance to make that team this year. And so, I think she used it as motivation, and that's I think for younger girls who are in the program or trying to make that team, like use those moments as motivation instead of something that discourages you. And Heisey did that.
What's your advice for some young girls who are getting into hockey, and there's probably never been more opportunities now for women to get into hockey and professional hockey and that kind of thing? Like, what kind of advice would you have for kids that go to your camp, I guess, to get involved?
Yeah, I think like obviously the ultimate thing is for like the really young girls is just making sure they're having fun and enjoying it every time they're on the ice. I think some of those, those high school kids or, U14 or high school kids that are getting into it and really, really enjoy it and are kind of on that talent level. I think you got to make sure that you're pushing yourself out of your comfort zone and don't do things that are too easy for you. And I think that's how your game grows. But, and then I always say this, like every coach that you have, every peer that you're around, like look to learn from.
I just have one question to add. With your time in coaching, especially with like some younger girls before this big opportunity, with this league now being bigger and having more outreach and, the free YouTube and Twitch and just reaching more people in this bigger day and age of social media too, do you see more younger girls coming down to the States from Canada? Because in Canada, obviously it's the mecca of hockey, But for women, it's like outside the national team, there's no high school hockey up there other than private school. There's no college really on a big level. Like there's a few U Sport teams, but at the same time, it's like there's no path to pro. Whereas I feel like there's a bigger path to pro now playing in the United States.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing that I've noticed is that a lot of women would, right after college or whatnot, would go overseas and play in one of the Swedish leagues over there.
Right.
And I think now that we have this league, I think it has attracted a lot more, girls and women from, Canada to come down here and play in college. And I think, our colleges and our universities have a lot to offer with that. And then, their eyes from the pro teams are going to be on those players quite a bit more. And so I think we'll see a lot more of that. There's been some obviously really talented players who've stayed up in Canada and played for the universities up there. But I'm curious to see if we'll see like less of that now that we have the pro league established so well down here.
It just seems like a bigger opportunity than before. And I've been one to follow like the CWHL and the NWHL back when they were kicking it. And this just seems different. Yeah. It just seems bigger. And I think that's, it's a good thing. It's a great thing for women's hockey. Last question here, and we asked this with all of our guests.
Final question brought to you as always by our good friends at Waggle Golf. First, make sure you head over to getyourwaggleon.com, throw in promo code SP10 to take 10% off your entire order.
Take advantage of their Black Friday and Cyber Monday deals running through December 2nd as well. I ask you, Brianna, what is your dream golf foursome?
Ooh. Okay, that's a tough one. Okay, well, obviously Yager would be in there, right?
There you go.
if he can step away from training. I would do okay. And is this for an outing? Because I need to know. Like, are we going to win something if we do have this foursome or no?
Well, for your best experience for like 4 hours in the course, you can pick who's in your cart with you, right? So the three other people you want to have. So like, you're not winning any prize money or any gold medals for this.
Okay. So yeah, Yager would be in it. Okay, Melissa McCarthy. Like, I think she's hilarious. I would just love to see how that would pan out. Jimmy Fallon, someone who would make me laugh quite a bit. And then, it's a tough one.
That's three. So that's four.
Then myself.
Yeah.
Yes,
because you golf too, right? Don't you golf?
Yes,
You're a hockey player. You golf, right?
Yes, I golf a lot. Yes. Thank you. Sorry.
I mean, there's some guests who are like, honestly, there's some guests who are like, honestly, I don't really golf. So like, I'll caddy and listen to stories or just bring the beers.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, no. I would want to golf. Yeah, I love golfing. So.
Are you pretty good? Or are you play enough to where you're competitive? Or what's the...
No, I don't play competitively, but no, I mean, I'm okay. Yeah.
Good enough to show off to Yager, obviously.
Well, thanks so much for joining us, Brianna. Congratulations. Do you have your speech ready yet, or how many drafts are you into your speech for the Hall of Fame?
Yeah, no, I have it ready, and now it's just a matter of making sure I read through it enough times that I'm pretty comfortable with it. So,
how many minutes do they give? They give you like 10 minutes, or how long?
It's like 5 to 7, which is really nice because I mean, I know some people love public speaking. I'm not a huge public speaker. I don't enjoy it that much. So. For the U.S. Hall of Fame, it was 10 minutes. And so I'm like, this is great. 5 minutes. I will not put TSN behind their
well, see, they know there's not many verbose hockey players. So they know.
Yeah, exactly.
Is the whole town coming to go see it? Or how many people are going to go to like the induction ceremony?
Yeah, I obviously have my family. And then I actually have quite a bit of teammates coming into town, which will be really fun for me. Helps with Megan Duggan and Megan Bozek live in Toronto right now. And then, but Casey Bellamy's making the trip and Alex Rigsby. And so I think the Lamoureux twins might be on their way as well. So I'm excited to see those guys. Like some of them I don't get to see very often, even though we're all obviously pretty close, but I'm excited for that.
Awesome. Well, congratulations. Enjoy it. And we'll see you out there at Shria, or formerly known as X Arena. So Grand Casino Arena for the fall season, which begins, I believe, November 21st. This year, so their chance for the win another third straight title if they can. So thanks again. Enjoy yourself, and we'll see you soon at the rink.
Awesome. Thank you guys for having me.
Now, Gopher hockey. Zamboni's on 7th, restaurant and bar right across the street from Grand Casino Arena in downtown St. Paul. You'll find a joke at 8 p.m. on Wednesdays. Enjoy happy hour food and drink specials when you stop in for the shows. Or if you've got something to say and enjoy stepping into the spotlight, go to zambonison7th.com and sign up to join the show. Spots fill up fast, and they do cap the number of comedians each week, so do not delay. Also, stay tuned for details on their once-a-month Friday night comedy show, Freaky Funny Fridays, beginning Friday, November 21st, featuring some of the hottest comedians in the Twin Cities. Zamboni's on 7th is a joke, but only on Wednesday evenings. And the occasional Friday. We got to talk Gophers selfishly for Fellowship of the Rink, but also got to talk Jimmy Clark. At least, hey, he's got 2 points.
I had my guy.
2 goals in his last 3 games. Dude, Gophers. I mean, we talked about some teams that have soft schedules. The one thing we can say is that the Gophers absolutely have not had that. Teams that they have played and their rankings. Let's see. Minnesota Duluth, ranked 4. They will be playing Penn State this coming weekend. If all goes according to plan, I will be back in the press box. Please, please, please. I need to see that one. They played number 6, North Dakota. They played number 7, Wisconsin. Like, insane bloodbath of a non-conference schedule. And Bob Motzko said it himself. Like, yeah, I set up this non-conference schedule when I thought I was going to have a lot of guys back that didn't come back. And there's only 2 guys that I was like, yeah, I get you leaving. And that was Jimmy Snuggerud and Sam Renzel. Fucking Matthew Wood putting up a hat trick. Where the hell did that come from? We've got the one that still will baffle me forever is Kurth. I think he should have been back, and he could have torched this year and had a lot of fun. I really like Chesley, whatever, dude. I think he was always just eyeing pros, but like going to Hershey, come on, you could have come back one more year. The one that was like really up, like very 50-50 for me was Oliver Moore. I would really, really like to have Oliver Moore back on this team. It would help so much in so many ways. But we can't ignore this past weekend, which was just a shit show.
Before you go further, because I watched that first game was stunning. But you only mentioned a few of the teams.
The first game.
You mentioned just a few of the teams they've already played. Let me just rattle off again. And I talked about this last 2 weeks with Isha. They start with Michigan Tech,
which
BC.
Is always a tough one. BC, who is BC? Is that even a team to talk about anymore?
Not right now. They're looking rough. Nodak,
very
Duluth, Wisconsin, and then they finally got like the Notre Dame weekend. And then I was like, all right, they can parlay that into the LIU weekend, and it did not start well. So let's just dive into this weekend. The weekend that was Friday, 6-2 loss, dude, including a goal from behind the red line.
Shout out to Jupe, Gopher Puck Live, with the diabolical tweet. All-time record between Gophers and LIU. 1-0 for LIU. God damn it. Man, first, this needs to be said because people...
Poor horror docs in the comments.
Bro, I went to my first Gopher game in like forever on Friday. Dude, that sucks. Horror docs, you should be refunded. They should actually double refund you and give you free tickets to a future game. I am so sorry. So let me say, people are losing their fucking minds online, and I'll start with, that's your right as a fan. That was unacceptable. That game was horseshit, and you have every right to be mad. But the people coming out and saying that this is the worst Gopher team in the past like 2 or 3 decades, Just let's take a deep breath. Let's touch some grass. Let's calm down. It was a bad game. It was a horseshit effort. I also need to say that LIU is nowhere near as bad as advertised. Everyone thinks that they are like a bottom 5 team in college hockey, and that's not true. Very well coached team. They capitalized on the power play, which, like, say what you will about that. They're just a disciplined team, a veteran team. They got older players. They got guys from overseas. Like, I think they've got an okay roster construction to be disruptive. Should the Gophers have lost 6-2? Fuck no. No. In that game, again, I can count like 5 or 6 guys total that gave even the slightest fuck in that game. It was embarrassing. That second goal that they scored, they scored a freaking goal, Z, where I believe 3 different LIU players touched the puck in the slot, and there were 4 Gopher players in the slot, and not a single one of them got touched by a Gopher player. If I wasn't holding a baby in the hospital, I would have broken things. It was crazy. DePasquo played a great start to that game. He got hung out to dry. I give him 0 freaking blame for that game. Like, literally the 4th line, quote unquote, which, like, Tanner Lukey, thank you for coming back. That 4th line and most of the 3rd line and maybe 1 or 2 defensemen, that's it. Like, the rest of the team could not have been more checked out. I'm just like, I don't know. That game was embarrassing. I'm still not content with what we saw on Saturday, but at least it was better. And I do think this team is way better than what they showed this weekend. I think the real hope here is that these early challenges and speed bumps are growing pains on towards something better. I mean, Teddy Townsend back, gets his first goal. Crazy rumors about what happened to him. I don't know if it's been, like, properly reported, so I won't, like, pour any gas on the flame, but, like, just some weird circumstances around the Gophers this year. I still think they have a solid roster. Is this a team that's going to win the Natty this year? No. But it's going to be a real challenge to work their way into the tournament, but this is absolutely a tournament caliber roster on paper. Problem is, paper has not translated to on ice. Needless to say, I think this is a roster that should be in the postseason. They've got a lot of work ahead of them. And fortunately, the Big Ten is an absolute wagon. So if they can do okay in their conference play, it's still a team that can make the postseason. It's just, dude, not awesome so far. Not a lot of awesome things I can say at this point. Z's gone. So I will say, again, bright spot was that 4th line for sure. I think it was a pretty interesting game on Friday and a solid weekend all around, but Paulson definitely looked a little bit different. He stood out amongst the pack. Created a lot of chances, was buzzing the whole game. I liked what I saw from him, but there's plenty of negative. Thanks again for tuning in. As always, you guys have been the best thus far. After my several week hiatus there, being AWOL for a bit, I should be back here moving forward. I always ask, let us know what you want us to talk about. Are there topics we're not hitting on that you want us to? Are there guests that we should be going after that we haven't gotten yet that you'd all love to hear from? Please let us know. Hit us up in the DMs. Drop us comments on the YouTube or on the podcast feed. Otherwise, we'll catch you all next week. Stay classy, stay to hockey.